In our previous video, we looked at a sample dataset. The ultimate goal of a dataset, however, is to be used effectively in a workbook. So let's take a look at what SuiteAnalytics workbooks are and how they can be used. First, what exactly is a SuiteAnalytics workbook? Essentially, a workbook is where you can visualize the data in your datasets. Datasets contain the raw information, while workbooks arrange that information in a way that is both appealing and comprehensible. A workbook can pull data from either a single dataset or from multiple datasets, depending on what you need the workbook to accomplish. You can even have multiple tabs on a single workbook, so workbooks can display various breakdowns of the same data. On each tab, you can choose the specific fields that you want to see. You can also filter and arrange the content in those fields. So how exactly do you go about creating a workbook? You have two main options. First, you could create a workbook directly from a dataset. If you're creating a dataset that you intend to use immediately in a new workbook, then you would use this option. In the Dataset Builder, simply select the Create New Workbook button in the upper right-hand corner. Your second option is to create a workbook from the Workbooks tab on the Analytics homepage. To do this, select the New Workbook button in the upper right-hand corner of that page. Then you'll be prompted to choose a dataset to base the workbook on. After creating a workbook, the next step is to determine how you want the workbook to visually display the data. You have three options: table, pivot, and chart. First, you could create a table with the data. To add fields to your table, drag any desired fields from the list on the left and drop them in the table. A table looks a lot like your original dataset. All the fields in the table are arranged in columns. And if you don't filter down these fields, then you'll have the same amount of results that your original dataset had. A second way you could visualize your data is using a pivot. When you set up a pivot, you'll be able to use your dataset fields as rows, columns, and measures. As with the table, you will drag and drop fields in the sections where you want them to appear. Pivots won't load automatically as you add fields, however, so you'll have to hit the refresh button in the upper left-hand corner to see how your changes affect the pivot. Finally, you could visualize your data using a chart. Rather than columns and rows, as in a pivot, the chart has an x-axis and a y-axis. The x-axis is simply called x-axis, but the y-axis is called series. You can also place fields in a section called measures. As with pivots, refresh the workbook after adding fields so you can see the results. After you have created a workbook, chosen a visualization type, and started adding fields from the original dataset, then what? Here are some other things you could do with your workbook. First, you can add new fields to your workbook by either editing your original dataset or adding an entirely new dataset to the workbook. To edit the original dataset, select the three dots to the right of the dataset name, and then select Open Dataset. After you have edited the dataset, save the dataset, and then select the Apply to Workbook button. The fields you added in the dataset are now accessible in your workbook. You can also add an entirely new dataset to a workbook. However, you can only add a new dataset to a workbook tab that doesn't have any fields applied to it yet. You would need to either remove all the fields you are already using in the Workbook tab or open up an entirely new tab in order to have the option of adding another dataset. Once your Workbook tab is ready to have a new dataset added to it, select the Connect Dataset button under the existing dataset. Another key option you have has to do with the fields you use in your Workbook tabs. Once a field is being used in your workbook, you can see additional options for that field by selecting the three dots to the right of the field name. Notice that some of the options you have are to sort the results from that field and to filter that field. You can also rename the field for the purpose of clarifying its function in your workbook. While these are the most common options, the type of field you select and how you're using it in the workbook will change some of your options in this menu. What do you do with a workbook when it's complete? You would definitely want to save the workbook for future use. Once you have saved a workbook, you will have the option of exporting it to SDF. Perhaps the most powerful thing you can do with a completed workbook, however, is to share it with others. When you select the Share button, you will have the option of sharing the workbook with specific roles and/or employees. Now that you understand the basics of workbooks, you're ready to create your own. In our next video, we'll put this knowledge to practice by creating a sample workbook. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by hitting the like button. And to learn more about how SuiteRep can help you with all of your NetSuite needs, visit us at SuiteRep.com.